Hello and thanks for watching my video. In this video we're going to show how UCS Manager with its stateless computing has the ability to rapidly recover from a hardware failure for a bare metal server, in this case running Microsoft SQL 2012 SP2. To start out with, I'm going to show you UCS Manager, and we have our server here, SQL Test 1. We see that server is up, associated with no alarms whatsoever. To show it has, from a storage perspective, it has a couple HBAs. It has 10 NICs associated with this server, and it has a boot policy that has it booting from the storage area network. If I come over to my RDP session to the server, we can see that the server is up. We see that it is activated. We have all of our NICs functioning. Of course, it's booted properly. And I have the ability to go in here to SQL and see from the Management Studio that my database is there and that it's happy. So in this SQL instance, I have loaded the sample AdventureWorks 2012 database, which is available for doing database testing. And we can see things like, various tables and such being propagated in the environment. So with that information being in the system and functioning, what I'm going to do is go simulate a failure now. So I'm going to go back to my UCS Manager, and we're going to take a look at the fact that this instance is running on Chassis 1 Blade 7. So I'm going to select Chassis 1 Blade 7 right here, and I'm going to go into my server function here, and I'm going to go into server maintenance here, and I'm going to decommission this server. By doing that, it's telling me that it will shut down the server, crashing it, so it's going to do an instant shutdown, and boom, that server is now down. Now what we see is happening is, now if we go back and look, we see that this same server is connected to Chassis 1 Blade 8. So it just automatically moved from Blade 7 to Blade 8, and we see this configuration and association taking place. What the system's doing now is it's taking the service profile, which is the software model of the definition of the server, and it's applying that so that the storage comes up with exactly the same storage configuration, including WWPNs. If we look at the network, we get all of our NICs with exactly the same MAC addresses. All of our BIOS and settings are the same. My boot settings are the same. In other words, this server is now booting. So I'll go ahead, in fact, and launch a KVM console here to the server, and we can watch it boot. Okay, so now we're watching the KVM console. And what we'll see here is this server is going to go through its boot from SAN process, which requires that the the WWPNs and the WWNNs be the same as what they were before, connected to the same vSAN, all of that because of stateless computing and this service profile software model moving from one physical blade to another. We're still going to be able to find our boot LUN on the SAN. So no reason to go in and have to make any changes to the array or to your SAN fabric to get this to boot. Then once it comes up, what we're going to see is we're going to go back into it via our RDP session. So I'll go ahead and disconnect from the current failed RDP session, and we'll let this boot. Here's where we're going to see if it can find our boot LUNs, and there it found the boot LUNs on the A fabric. And now it's going to look for the boot LUNs on the B fabric. And there we go. So we have actually found our LUNs, so we know that all of our fiber channel or SAN connectivity is still good. We'll prove when the system comes back up that my, my host name, IP address, and MAC addresses have all stayed the same. And then we're going to go back in and we're going to look at the server manager, and we're going to validate that it still shows that Windows is activated. The UUID on the motherboard, which is generally burnt in, is tied to the GUID, which is used for activation of Windows and applications. And because of this stateless computing, we've also moved that information from one physical blade to another. So what we'll see at the end of this is a fully booted server. Again, exactly what it was. Looks to the operating system like somebody had maybe just gone in and pulled the power cord and plugged it back in. It has no idea that it moved from one blade to the other. So that's for fault recovery. I've done similar types of functions for moving between generations of servers, having a previous generation like a Sandy Bridge architecture to an Ivy Bridge, or a Westmere Nehalem to a Sandy Bridge. I've even gone from different full-on classifications of servers where maybe the SQL server was running on a 2-socket, 128 gigs of RAM machine, and I decided to move it to a 4-socket. That is fully supported also. In the latter cases, Windows may have to go in and learn some new devices because it finds a new CPU or finds some new devices on the motherboard. But since all of the primary components stay the same from what the operating system and application needs, everything just boots up and works. So during this description, we are back up and running. I'm going to go over here to my SQL host. We see that it's giving me the request to go ahead and log back in. And I will put my creds in, and we will be back into our SQL server host. We notice that we get our, this server had crashed message, in which I could, select something like doing a demo or whatever. I'll just hit cancel. And now this system is coming back up. So just the fact that I was able to RDP proves that the network is continuing to function. And then we'll go in and look at our local server. While it's loading up the server manager, oh, here we go. We'll see the product ID update and still activated. We still have our NICs, and nothing has re-enumerated from the NICs because all of their names have stayed the same. So it didn't have to go rebuild anything with different MAC addresses. And then finally, if we go back into the studio for SQL, we should be able to pull up our database and see that everything is still intact. There we go, my database is running. If I open it up, pull up my AdventureWorks, say look at my tables, there's all the tables we saw before. And then just finally, just to show that everything from the SAN stayed true, that in this environment we see the local boot drive, but we also see a paging disk and my SQL LUN that are on my SAN all have reconnected successfully. So hopefully this was of interest to you. Please check back for more videos on my site, and thanks for watching.